Prime Minister, good afternoon. Greg Quinn with Market News. I have a document showing some of the fiscal plans for this year.
Look at that. It looks like it's written on a napkin, Greg.
Well, I don't know whose napkin it is. It said there's a contingency borrowing authority.
Is that the opposition's fiscal plan?
No, it's finances. It says there's a contingency or an option to borrow 95.
What kind of shop are you running? Sorry, Greg. I'm sorry. I respect. Yeah.
Just the executive summary. That's the executive
Okay, start again. You have a document. I'm sorry. I treat it with.
It outlines fiscal plans for this year, and it mentions an option to borrow up to $95 billion, excuse me, to cover geopolitical risk. You know, we're in the middle of some delicate trade talks with the U.S. I just wondered, in these circumstances, why do we need to set aside that amount of money to get through this?
Well, in all seriousness, obviously, by my response to your document, I haven't seen what you're talking about, so you're asking me to comment on something I haven't seen, full stop. Then I'm going to tell you something you already know, which is that any responsible government makes contingency plans. The world is in a trade war. The world's in a trade war that is running a risk of a global recession. And if I would note, and you don't need to take it from me, I'll quote the chair of the Federal Reserve this week, who highlighted the risks of stagflation, in other words, inflation. In their judgment, Federal Reserves, what do they know? But this is what they think, that inflation is going up and growth is going to slow in the United States. The world's in the middle of a trade war, and several wars, actual wars, including wars that can have quite significant implication for commodity prices, global growth, aside from the human cost that comes with them. Any responsible government, any responsible organization makes contingency plans for those circumstances.
This wasn't your typical polite Canadian speech. It was bold, unapologetic, and layered with subtle digs that exposed how Trump's America First policies may have backfired, strengthening Canada in ways few saw coming. Today, we're breaking down what Carney said, why it matters, and how one well-placed joke revealed the future of global power. New York City, Council on Foreign Relations. It's a place where presidents, diplomats, and global elites debate the future of the world. And right there, in the heart of America's foreign policy establishment, Carney drops a reality check that no one expected. He declares that Canada will no longer sit quietly in America's shadow. For decades, Ottawa often waited for Washington's approval before making bold moves, but not anymore. Carney set the tone immediately. Global power is shifting, America's dominance is no longer guaranteed, and Canada is stepping forward as a serious player. The audience didn't just hear a speech. They saw a Canadian leader standing tall, not as America's junior partner, but as a confident equal. That shift in tone alone was enough to raise eyebrows. But Carney wasn't done. Remember when Trump slapped tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, claiming it was about national security? For many, it seemed like Canada had been cornered, but Carney spun the narrative on its head. He called that trade war a rupture, a sharp break in the system. And instead of weakening Canada, it became a wake-up call. Ottawa didn't collapse under pressure. It pivoted, fast. Canada rushed to diversify its economy, strengthen ties with Europe, and deepen trade with Mexico and Asia. Then came the killer line. Carney joked that Trump had done more to push Canada closer to Europe than any Canadian Prime Minister ever could. The room exploded with laughter. But beneath the humor was a devastating truth. Trump's attempt to isolate Canada actually backfired. Instead of making Canada dependent on the U.S., it forced Canada to grow stronger and more independent. And Carney made sure his American audience felt that sting. Carney wasn't just making jokes. He rolled out a full strategy, 3 pillars that would define Canada's future. Pillar 1. Build strength at home. Canada is cutting down trade barriers between its provinces, investing heavily in technology, and, perhaps most shocking of all, doubling defense spending by 2030. For a country often seen as underinvesting in its military, that's a seismic shift. Pillar 2. Diversify abroad. New trade deals aren't just with the U.S. anymore. Canada signed a comprehensive agreement with the European Union. It deepened its relationship with Mexico under USMCA, and it's pursuing aggressive strategies across Asia. Carney framed this as resilience. While America picks fights, Canada builds bridges. Pillar 3. Defend Canadian values. Pluralism, sustainability, collaboration. Carney insisted these aren't just nice-sounding words, they're assets. In a world full of conflict and authoritarianism, Canada's diverse, open, and democratic model is something many nations admire. It's what makes Canada attractive as a global partner. The message was crystal clear. Trump's America may thrive on division, but Canada is betting on resilience and cooperation.
Carney widened the scope. He made it clear Canada is no longer playing catch-up. Instead, it's leading in areas Washington once dominated. Canada has doubled defense spending. It's on track to join European defense initiatives. It's strengthening bilateral deals with Mexico and pushing into Asian markets. And then came the point that made American officials sit up straight. Canada is now the largest per capita contributor to Ukraine. Think about that. While Washington bickers over aid, Canada is pulling its weight, and then some. On Arctic sovereignty, Canada isn't just waiting for U.S. cover. It's working hand-in-hand with Nordic and Baltic allies to protect its north and NATO's western flank. This wasn't just foreign policy talk. It was a statement. Canada can and will defend its interests without begging for U.S. permission. If Carney's humor drew laughs, his facts drew silence, because they were undeniable. 40% of the world's listed mining companies are Canadian. Canada leads in AI and quantum research, producing some of the top minds in the field. Canada is spearheading buyers' clubs for critical minerals, reducing dependence on China. And yes, Canada is an energy superpower, fully capable of shaping the global climate conversation. These weren't just statistics. They were proof that Canada has leverage, proof that Canada's economy and resources give it bargaining power many Americans underestimate. Carney wasn't shouting. He wasn't ranting. He let the numbers do the talking. And they told a story America didn't want to hear. Canada doesn't need to play second fiddle anymore. Let's go back to that viral moment, the joke. Carney's line about Trump pushing Canada closer to Europe had the room roaring with laughter. But the laughter masked something deeper, a warning. Humor, in politics, often lands the hardest punches. Carney's joke wasn't just comedy. It was a mirror, reflecting how Trump's nationalist policies backfired and weakened America's influence. While the audience laughed, Carney was sending a message. America is isolating itself, and Canada is seizing the opportunity. And here's the twist. Carney didn't need to insult Trump directly. He simply highlighted the results of Trump's actions. The laughter turned Trump's strategy into a... Carney then zoomed out. The message wasn't just about Canada. It was about the world. As America retreats into transactional nationalism, others are filling the vacuum. Canada is deepening ties with Europe, with Asia, with Mexico. China, for all its controversies, is engaging on climate and building competitive advantages. Europe is building defense arrangements without Washington at the center. The global order is shifting, and if America keeps looking inward, it risks losing leadership to countries willing to step up. Carney's warning was blunt, though wrapped in politeness. The world won't wait for Washington. By the end of the speech, one thing was clear. Carney didn't just deliver a policy address. He delivered a message of confidence, humor, and defiance. He reminded Americans that Trump's trade war didn't weaken Canada. It made it stronger. He laid out the numbers proving Canada's independence. And he made the audience laugh at Trump, while quietly warning them that the U.S. is risking its place in the world. This was more than politics. It was symbolism. For Canadians, it was a moment of pride. For Americans, especially Trump's camp, it was a warning. And for the rest of the world,
It was proof that Canada is stepping into the role of a respected global leader. When the laughter faded, the message was unmistakable. Canada stands tall. Canada won't be pushed around. And Canada is ready to lead.